New for you tonight, Sanford Health held an open house today to showcase its new substance use disorder clinic downtown. As Harrison Prey reports, it gave the community an opportunity to learn about the services they offer to those struggling with drug addiction.
We are working with medically complex patients.
Sanford Medical hosted an open house at their substance use disorder clinic on Broadway North in Fargo.
We have had a lot of people that have been addicted in the past.
To spread the word on the services they offer for those struggling with drug addiction.
They don't just have the addiction, they have mental health, they have physical symptoms or diagnoses that have to be addressed. And what we're doing here differently is that we're integrating that care for them.
They're integrating the care for those fighting the habit by teaming up with their doctors, where they help patients get their treatments and physical care. Carberry mentioned that those that come to the disorder clinic, it's mostly alcohol related.
Probably 50% is alcohol, 25% opiates, and then everything under the other part of that 25%.
She's also noticed patients are using more than one substance.
It can also be with the opiates. We do have a little downtick right now of methamphetamines.
Sanford also gives patients peer support from their own staff that have experienced addiction themselves, like their very own John Campbell.
I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. I'm John Campbell. I'm a peer support specialist.
And what we've been finding is building these relationships early with the patients. They're finding our way back to us.
In Fargo,
they're finding our way back to us.
Harrison Prey, Valley News Live.
Sanford Health leaders say that this clinic was made possible through a grant by the North Dakota Opioid Settlement Fund.